The idea, see, this is first of all, this is a regulatory requirement, so everything inside is important. The mail is just giving you a suggestion that you can play a little down, but you still need to answer, right? But it is giving you as in a leeway to answer. Right to access. So we are looking with right to be informed. Simple as that. Right? Again, this one again is that right to be informed is also being vetted somewhere else. We've heard about the Freedom of Information Act. I mean, heard about it before now. So it's your right as a citizen of Nigeria to be informed about what government is doing. And also exercise that right using that other one. Are we together? But remember that Freedom of Information Act will not be valid if, or even this one too will not be valid if you say you go to.
Hello, are you guys ready for me? Go in now. Andrew, you don't know. Check, now, is he the one looking for you? Actually, hello? Okay, guys. Sorry for the time delay. In today's class, we are going to look further into the my PHP MyAdmin platform. So the PowerPoint will be ready later. So I'll post it on the group or on the learning management system so that you can download it and then um, read through and then answer some questions that will come. But let me take you through it and then we discuss and then you can now go through the PowerPoint to get more. Then on Saturday, we do the practical. So one of the things we want to look at today is how to make your table usable by the developer. Or if you are the developer, after creating the table, how do you make it online or use it in any application that you want to use it for? Because like I mentioned, MySQL is an open source. That means you can use it with Python, you can use it with PHP, you can use it with C Sharp, you can use it with Node.js, you can use it anywhere because it's open source. So after creating the database with PHP how do you make it usable? The answer is export. Export. after creating the table, you have created the database, you've created all the tables that will be on the database. The next thing you do is to export the table, the database entirely. So when you export it, you copy the file. When you export it, the file will be available for download. And whatever name your database is, it will attach .sql to it. That's the file that when you download it, you can now share it with whoever or wherever you want to use the database. Let's say that the name of your database is StudentDB. By the time you click on export and then export the data, what you will see is studentdb.sql. Then you download it and then use it. However, there are many formats that you can download your database to. You can download it as PDF, you can download it as Excel file, that is .xls. You can also download it as a CSV file. What I mean is exporting. When you are exporting it, you can indicate the format you want it to be. The default is SQL, so that you can use it in your as a database to the software you're developing. So you use it as .sql. That's the natural. That's the default. If you don't make any change, but I'm saying that you can change it based on what you want to use it for. Let's say that the database they want to use it to run some machine learning analysis using Python. In that case, you have to export it as a CSV file. So because it's a CSV file, when you are exporting, you indicate that it's CSV that you want. Then the name of the file will now be studentdb.csv. It will no longer be studentdb.sql. It will now be studentdb.csv. So you download the CSV file and share it with whoever or use it for whatever purpose that you are exporting it for. Then, if you want to use it for ordinary analysis, that means you have to export it as uh, Excel file, that is .xls. So you select whatever you want to export it as. You export it as that format and then use it. So what we just learned now is that that database you created, for you to bring it out to the world so that the people can use it, so that you yourself can use it if you are the developer, you have to export it. And a database have many uses as far as organization is concerned, as far as data analysis, as far as data science, as far as big data has come to stay in this earth. Exporting data is a primary operation. So learning how to export data is an advantage because you'll be needing it almost all the time. And it's not only for developers. You can use it in a data analysis organization. If you are working with what you are learning, remember, you may not necessarily be a developer with the knowledge. You can also opt to be a database administrator with with this thing we are learning, because what you are learning is database management system. So you can be a database manager for an organization. You can be a database administrator for an organization. So in those cases now, the database of your organization is not only used for creating software. So you can export it for these different purposes, either for data analysis, machine learning algorithm, data processing, report writing, and any other purpose that you want to export your data. You can also export data in parts. What I mean in part is that if you don't want to export the whole database, then you may want to export only one table from that database. So what you need to do is just to click on that table. You know, when you create a database, you create many tables under it. You can view each table by clicking on the table name from your database. When you click on database, all the tables under the database will appear. You click on the table that you want, that table will open. So you can see the data inside that table. While that table is open, click on export. it will export only that table. So you don't necessarily have to export the whole database. You export only that table. And all the things we explained here apply. You can export as SQL, you can export as uh, CSV, you can export as Excel, you can export as PDF, depending on your purpose. So what we just learned now is that you can export the whole database or you can export a table. And you can export them in any format you want, depending on the purpose of the data. Another thing we will talk about is import. Import. So most of the times we want to consume data. We are not just giving out. In that case, you have to import it. So the data you are importing is the data that another person have exported. Or it can also be you. Maybe you have exported this data, then you want to import it. Let's say you have different tables from different sources, and you want to bring all these tables into one database. So you create your database, and then you start importing those tables one by one. That may be a reason. Another reason is you want to use this database to develop your software. So you have the database from another source, so you import it. So you can import the whole database at once. You can also import a table by table. So depending on what is available and the condition surrounding the importation, you can import a table, you can import tables, you can import the whole database at once. So if you are working as a developer and you are working in a team, so they share the task. Some persons are developing the database, other people are writing the code. Maybe your own is to connect the database to the code that you have written. The person that developed the database will export it as we have discussed earlier and send the file to you. You now access the file, import it using the PHP environment. That's the MySQL XAMPP that I've been using. You import it and then start using it. You can also download some database from online and then import them and use them. You can have an Excel file that you want to use as a database. So what you need to do is you convert that Excel file to CSV and then import the CSV. The PHP will convert it for you. The MySQL engine or XAMPP that you're using will convert it to SQL and you can now use it as a database. So that is import is like the opposite of export. The way you can export many tables or export the database and in different formats, that's how you can also consume. That's how you can also import different tables or database from different formats. Then the next thing we'll look at is authentication. Authentication is user privileges. When you are using your PHP you are using the system authentication. That is, you are using the window logon details. If you log in as yourself, or the system user, if you password your system, that's what I'm talking about. If you password your laptop, that user login, that user account, that username and password that you are using is naturally the username and password of the PHP where you are creating your database. I hope you know where I'm calling PHP That XAMPP, when you open XAMPP and go to localhost XAMPP, that environment where you're creating the table and the database, that's where I'm calling PHP Okay, so the user account, the window user account is naturally the account, the access level, access right to the database that you create. Now, if you have instruction or if from what you're doing, you want to create a database that have different username and password. That means before anybody will access that database, they will have to put the username and password. So there are different access levels. One, you can create a super access level that once you put that username and password, you have rights to do everything in the database. There are many operations in the database. We have read, which will allow you to open the database and see the contents of the tables. We have write, which will allow you to type something, edit, or update what is in the table. That's a different right. Then we have delete, that will enable you to delete what is in the file, and so on. So there are many access levels. So if you create a super access level, that means once the person log in, the person will be able to access the file, delete it, update it, and so on. You can also create another account for a person. So that person will have a read-only access. Once the person log in with that username and password you created, the person can only see the files, but they can't edit it. They can't delete it. You can also create another account that someone can use to delete, someone can use to. So all these user account privileges, you can create them in the PHP So on Saturday, we are going to practice these things and see how they work. But for now, do not attempt to create these user accounts by yourself. The danger is that as a beginner, if you create it at super level, that means anytime you want to log into that database, you have to, not only the database, if you create it at super level, anytime you want to log into the PHP admin, you have to provide that password. If not, you can't create table anymore. You can't create database anymore. That is if you forget it. So that's why for now, you can practice other things we are talking about, but keep that access level until we meet in class on Saturday. Another uh, area of interest is copying table or changing table name. That is, you are altering the table now. You can have a table. After creating it, you now want to change the name of the table. Remember the one we did on Saturday? We changed the names of columns. You can have a column and then edit it. Both the column name, the column structure, the length, the data type, the constraints. You can change those ones. We did it on Saturday. But I'm talking about the table itself. You can change the name of a table. Let's say a table is supposed to be student registration table, and you called it registration table. During the time you're developing software, you now notice that, oh, I should have called this table student registration table. So what will you do? Are you going to delete the table and start all over again? No. You can edit the name of the table. Another reason why you may want to change the name of a table is when you are copying a table. There are some tables that their columns are similar. Let's say, for example, in an institution, you can have student table and lecturer table. Student table, if the student table contain maybe name, age, gender, address, phone number, password, username and password, and email, and the lecturer table contain the same column. So you don't need to waste time creating the two tables. You create only one, then you copy that table. When you copy that table, the name of the two tables will be the same, or will be similar. They will be the same. So you want to change the copied one or one of them to lecturer table. So what you need to do is just to go to alter table and then change the name. After you have copied the table, you change the name. So you can copy table, which is the table you created by yourself. You can copy it. It is different from importing table. Importing table is a table that exists somewhere else, and you are bringing it into your database. But copying table is duplicating a table that you already have in your database. Just like the example I gave you now, a lecturer table and a student table. If the content is the same, you don't need to waste time creating that table again since the content is the same. You just copy the table and then change the name of the table. So just know that there is a room for you to copy table and change it. So that is the item 2 in our course content for today. The first one was export and import. The second one is user authentication. And the third one is copying table, which we have just discussed now. So finally, I promise you guys that we are going to talk about encryption, because if you are creating a table, you need to put sensitive data in safety. You have to secure them because more than often, uh, the bad boys can access your table. That makes the best practice if you identify sensitive data and secure them. And the best way to secure data in a table is by encryption. So one might wonder what encryption is. So this encryption is changing the data into unintelligible form or a form that is not understandable or a form that anonymize the data. So all these grammars are just grammars. What they mean is that if you keep the data and someone access it in encrypted form, the person cannot understand it or make use of it. One of the encryptions that are common is password. You know, when you are typing your password, maybe in your phone, on your laptop, you see that what you're typing will be changing to dot, 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 dot. So those dots are not usable, they are not intelligible enough. They are anonymized. You can't make anything out of them. So that is how it is. If you encrypt the data in the table, the unauthorized person cannot understand anything with the data, even if they access it. We know that when you're protecting data, there is need for you to protect the network. There is need for you to protect the storage so that unauthorized people cannot access it. But that is beyond the duty of a software engineer. Your duty is to protect the software itself, which is the database or the tables, as the case may be, or the data in the table in the database. So those data is what you need to encrypt. The sensitive ones, there are some that are not necessary, but there is no law to determine what is necessary and what is not. It is during the time you're collecting user requirements from the owner of the software that two of you can determine what is sensitive and what is not sensitive. So, but there are naturally occurring sensitive data, something like password, something like account bank information, something like critical personal information like um, uh, BVN, NIN, even sometimes account phone number, because nowadays phone numbers are more powerful than just for making calls. There are specific areas where phone number is the major identification. Take all these WhatsApp groups, for example. You see that by being in a WhatsApp group, you expose your number, and a bad boy can hack into that password, into that WhatsApp group, and start copying people's number and start calling them to send money or advancing frauds against those people that own those numbers. So, what I'm trying to say here is that there is no law that specifies what a sensitive data is. It is you and the person that you are collecting the data for, that is the owner of the software, that determines what should be sensitive and what should not. So all those things that are sensitive, you have to encrypt them. So you can have more than two or three encryption columns in your table. The caveat in encryption is that you have to use the one that is reversible. There are encryptions that are not reversible. In which case, if you lose the key, that data is destroyed. You have to discard the data and start creating it again. That is why if you lose your password in Facebook or in Google Gmail, because the encryptor they use is irreversible. What it means is that you have to create a new password. They cannot remind you the password. They cannot give you the password back. In reality, they don't have it. It's not like they have it, but they don't want to give you. They don't have it because it is a one-way encryption. So when a data is encrypted with one-way encryptors, the data is destroyed if you cannot provide the key to the encryption. So if you are securing um, a part of someone's data, you have to be sure that the encryptor you are using is reversible so that if the key is lost, you can recreate that data for the person, especially when the rightful owner comes or when someone authorized to access the data connects to it. You should be able to reproduce that data. So you be watchful the kind of encryptor you are using, that it is reversible, depending on the kind of data you're protecting. Passwords can be irreversible. At least that will give the owner a rest of mind that you, the developer, will not access it to unauthorizedly access their data. Because if the password is reversible, some criminal developers can fetch people's password and use it to log into their account and begin to monitor what they are doing. So, but if password is irreversible, it will give everybody the rest of mind that nobody can access it except the owner. And if the owner lost the password, that is the end of it. You have to recreate it again. So these are some of the things that you bear in mind when doing encryptions. We have some encryptors that are reversible, like Ridge and Dell. You can look out for Ridge and Dell. We have MD5. MD5 is not reversible. MD5 is not reversible. So what you do with it is matching. When it matches when you encrypt data with MD5, you want to access that data. The system will encrypt the key and then match it with the one in the database. If two of them match, then there is a match. It doesn't reverse. So you can also check out, there are many cryptographies that you can check up online and then use the one that is favorable. You can also use more than one in your table. So what happens is on that Saturday, we are going to look at some encryptions and how to decrypt them, and also the ones that are one way. There's also something called salty encryptions. So those encryptions that use a additional key, they become harder. When we say that an encryption is hard, that means it is difficult to break by unauthorized persons. So experiments have shown that salty encrypt, uh, salty encryptions are very difficult to break. So we also look at some of them that are salty, and then but you have to use them sparingly because the number of turns, there's something they call turns in a encryption. The number of turns they do is heavy. That means it consumes system resources. So if you overuse them, it slows down the performance of your system. So that's why they are used sparingly. You only use them in a location where security is too important. Then you can sacrifice some resources for it. But whereby you're developing a normal system, then there are a lot of uh, encryption algorithms that you can use that will save time and also do the job very well. Another thing about securing the data is that the developer also have a role to play in sanitizing the inputs, because sometimes there is something called SQL injection. Some of these things are codes that are written by the user. So they pass it to the form. And if the developer is not careful, when you click submit, those codes are submitted to the database. And the database can execute those instructions. And some of them are malicious. Some of them will destroy your security of the database. Some of them will fetch data and send it back to the owner of the injection. So, but if the programmer sanitizes user inputs before submitting them to database, it saves the health of the database and also make you to have a quality data. Quality data is a data that is accurate and complete. So imagine when you are collecting people's phone number, for example, and someone types 10-digit numbers instead of 11. Automatically, that data is there, but it's not quality because you can't use it. You see. So, but if the programmer, while he was designing the form, write some scripts that will ensure that phone number is 11 digits before you can submit it. In that way, any information that comes from that form, especially concerning the phone number, will at least be 11 digits. Even if the person makes some typos, whereby his number should be 081 and he types 080, at least it's somebody's phone number. If you are automating SMS, the SMS will go. But if the number is 10 digits instead of 11, if you're automating SMS, it will not go to that number and it can even stop the process. If that person is number 3 out of the 100 people you want to send the message to, it will stop at that 3. The whole 97 will not get, which is which is wrong. So it's better that the phone number is wrong and the other 99 got their own than stopping it on the way. So the person that is programming the form need to work together with the person that is designing the database. Because whatever comes into the database passes through form before it comes to the database. So the way the form is designed have very great impact on the database, especially on security, especially on the quality of data. So there must be a synergy, there must be a working together between these two guys. So take note of that. If you are the one designing the database and also writing the form code, that means you are the back-end developer. You need to watch how you design your form. And if you are not, then talk to the person doing the form to show you the efforts he make to protect the data that is coming from the user, because it can affect the quality of your database. If a virus is passed into your table, it can eat up the database that you have and you'll be blamed for it. So you have to protect it, not just by encryption, but by looking at the form design, the way the form, the code behind the form that is processing the user input before sending it to you. That user input need to be sanitized to ascertain the quality and the security of the data that is coming in. So at your own time, you can look at SQL injection, look for it online and read about it so you'll understand clearly how injections work that can attack your database from the user interface by the malicious users if you did not sanitize your forms. So that is about the security of the data in the database. So we have other constraints that um, I expect you to read by yourself, even though I've not mentioned it to you, but you can look it up. When we come on Saturday, we are also going to look at some of them. One of them is index, the other. So these are also constraints that make your table to be important. It makes your table important and usable and makes for quality data. When we talk about unique. Unique refers to a, a data element that cannot repeat. It cannot repeat. We are not talking about primary key now. We are talking about a data element that cannot repeat. The purpose of it is to ensure that the data is not repeated. So what do we use it for? We use it to check that one person cannot register twice. So sometimes you want to register in a platform, and as you try to register, it tells you, oh, you have registered before. Log in instead. So how did the system know that you have registered? It's because there is a data element there that is constrained as unique. So that unique makes it that you can register twice. Sometimes they use email address to do that. Sometimes they use phone number to do that. Sometimes they use any type of data element that they feel that only you have access to it, and they don't want it to appear twice, so you cannot register twice. It's called unique. You check out for it, but we are going to practice it on Saturday. Another one I mentioned is index. You can make a data element. When I say data element, I mean column. The column where you're making your columns, you can create email address, and at the constraint level, you label it unique. If you label your password, your email address as unique, the email address column as unique, no one person cannot register twice. I mean, that same email address cannot appear twice on your table. By so doing, you have restricted that if you have 20 data on that database, that means you have 20 registrants. That's the meaning. Because each registrant is unique. But if you didn't make anything unique, that means one person can register 4 times, 5 times. Sometimes this registration is not intentional. Someone may click submit. They have filled your form and they click submit. The data submitted, but because there's a network failure, the person didn't know that it has submitted. The person now click refresh. After refreshing, the thing will submit again. Maybe the network is still low. The person click refresh again. It will submit again. But before you know it, the person have submitted 3 times. Sometimes too, people can register and forget that they have registered. They will now come and try to register again. If you didn't check it, the person can register again. And before you know it, one person's data can appear 5 times, which can be misleading. When you are checking how many people have registered, you say 50. You don't know that some people register 3 times, some people register 2 times. By the time you now filter out the data, you see that the number is not up to 50 again. So that's why this unique is very important. Although, depending on the kind of data base that you are building, these things are not fixed. It is from your data collection that you decide what you use as unique and whether unique is necessary for this data or for this database that you are creating. So the one we call index is used for searching. If you didn't put index, the database can still search. When you use the keyword insert, select, the keyword, we have SQL statements. One of the statements is select. When you use select statements, you are searching for data in the database. So whether you make a column index or not, it will still search. But the advantage of making a table, a column to be indexed, is that the computer will understand that this is a search key. This is a search key. So anytime you want to make a search and you use that one that is indexed, you get a faster result than when you are using other column names that you didn't constrain as index. So when you constrain anyone as index, you are telling the system that this is my search string, this is my search key. So that anytime you want to search that database, if you put that key, bam, it will get you the item that has that key. So it is very important that you also take note of that index because of searching, because database should be searched. But the essence of creating database is so that people can fetch data from the database. and that fetching is the search. So if you make an index, it becomes easier for anybody to search the database and get the data they want quickly, quicker than if you don't have anyone as index. So the one you make as index becomes your search key or your search string. So that is the lecture we have for today. Let me apologize again for not bringing the PowerPoint on board, but I'm going to share it. Then, okay, what I will do, instead of giving assignment on it, I will allow room for comments. So if you read it and think that there is something you want to ask question about, you can leave a comment. Or no, I will give assignment so that that assignment will compel you to check the level of what you read and what you understand. Then I will also make room for feedback so that if there is anyone you read and you didn't get it clearly, you can ask your question through that window. So that is the class for today. Let me look at the comment section and see whether you have questions. Please, if you have, drop it as a comment at the group. Let me look at there now and see.
Okay, remember, the consent is just one lawful basis for processing, right? Yeah. So that one is just that. If the National Population Census (NPC) want to count you, they under statute to count you, right? If you refuse for them to count you, let me just this one again, this counting population census. I know the way things like this are being implemented. It's a community-based initiative.
Okay, guys, I'm sorry I was disconnected and the admin was unable to add me in on time. So I saw some questions on the comment section. Someone said the difference between unique and primary key. Primary key is the link that one table have with another. That's what they relate with. But the unique is just what makes a record different from other records. There is similarity in that primary keys are also unique. But the difference is that primary keys, the purpose of primary keys is not just to create uniqueness, but it is to create relationship. So primary key is unique, but it is used for relationship. But there are ones that are unique only, specifically for the purpose of being unique. So anything you make primary key is unique, but you can as well use the primary key for relationship, for connectivity with unique is not used to create relationship. That's the difference between them. So the person that asked this question is Sam Idris. I think I've answered that. Then another person said the assignment on our dashboard, are we using XAMPP to create the company's database? Yes, it's XAMPP that you use. For now, we are using XAMPP because we are doing SQL. When we will be doing no SQL, we will not be using XAMPP again. So for now, any assignment given to you, please do it with XAMPP. When you open XAMPP, you open PHP you create the tables there. Another person asked, what do you say we should read on? I said that you should read on salty encryptions. You should read on um, unique and index constraints as it regards to creating columns, when you're creating columns. So these are the things I asked you to read. Like I said you should have been able to know about unique and index before now. But since I didn't highlight it, it was just mentioned, I didn't highlight it. And now that I have highlighted it, you should go and read about them so that you'll be very comfortable with them, what they are for. Because we are going to do a practice on them on Saturday. So it's good that you have a theory background on them. so that when we now do it, it becomes easier for you to understand. Mohammed Ali said they are ready for the class, but that I need to share the previous class. Please, the previous class and even today's class, I'm going to share today's class too. All these things are or are going to be at the learning student portal, that is the learning management system. If you don't have access to it, please contact Mr. Hayat or Mrs. Hanatu. They will connect, they will give you access to it or direct you to it. That's the platform you are using for the training. So this class now, once I get home now, I will create I will do the PowerPoint and then put it on the platform so that from tomorrow, you should be able to access it, read it, and then answer the questions that are there. Then if you have any need to ask for further clarification on the topics that we just discussed, you upload your comments. I will see it and then comment. So everything is on the learning management system. The previous classes, today's class will come up by night. So from tomorrow you can access it. Ahmed, you are saying how can you access today's class? But that's just what I answered now. That I'm going to put it in PowerPoint and send it up to the learning management system so that you can access it the way you access the previous classes. The the learning management system gives you an arrangement of all the files in the system, all the lecture notes that have been uploaded. So you will see today's own. You can find it by date. You can also find it by name. The name is import export. That's what I would call it because that's the most important class that we had this morning is on export and import. So I will upload it so that you see it from there. Okay, that's all the questions I have. I think um, you guys have tried. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for being in the class. Um, the time is almost running off, but that's not the point. The point is that we have had our class and we have asked questions and I've provided the answers. See you again physically on Saturday for those that are physical students. Thank you and have a nice week ahead. God bless.